Hey, good Friday morning, Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert. So glad you were able to join us today. So normally, Reverend Charles had his show, Life on Love, today. And I just wanted to let you know that there's been a change. Reverend Charles has left the center. He has resigned from the center. So the Board of Trustees has been involved in discussing things with him. And he has just moved on a different journey. So we bless him for his service. We thank him so much for his service to our center, and we bless him on his new journey. So we're going to have a change of what's going to go on in the future. But for today, I decided that since it was so last minute, there's somebody that most people have never really gotten to meet and engage in conversation. So I want to welcome what I consider to be the Wizard of Oz, which is the famous Elizabeth Gold. Jeff, bring Elizabeth on. Is she there? There she is. See that? Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning. Thank
you. Elizabeth hates being on camera, so we all have to be very patient with her. But I'm so glad you agreed to do this today. Of course, I kind of forced you to do it, but it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So Elizabeth, I really do think of you as, I was telling somebody about the show today, and I said, it's really interesting because when you watch The Wizard of Oz and, the wizard is behind this curtain, and, I look at the office as almost being like it's behind the curtain, and behind that curtain is somebody making everything move and knowing what's what, and just, having the trust of an entire community in their hand, just like the Wizard of Oz. So I consider you to be my little wizard. So I want to say I thank you so much for everything you do for the center. Elizabeth and her husband, Reverend William, they practically live there. I swear they should just put showers and a bed there because they're there 24/7. So Elizabeth, I want to start out by asking you, how did you find the center? Because there's a really interesting storyline that goes with that. So tell everybody how you actually found the Center for Spiritual Living and how you became to and become an employee there.
Actually, I was in real estate and I was working for an agent in La Quinta, and I lived in La Quinta at the time. Did I? No, I didn't. I lived in Palm Desert. But I answered an ad, and the ad was for a bookkeeper, and it was part-time. And I wasn't a bookkeeper. I had my real estate license, and I knew QuickBooks because I owned a coffee business, and I used to do my QuickBooks, my own business. And I answered the ad, and I didn't know where the church was. I didn't even know it was a church. I just knew that I parked in your parking lot because my daughter went to school across the street. And so the ladies hired me on the spot for a bookkeeper. And I was not a bookkeeper at the time. And it was supposed to be part-time. And that's the only thing. I wanted to work part-time so I didn't have to put my girls in childcare. And because I was a single mom with 2 girls, I believe, at the time. So I didn't want to do that. And then I got hired on the spot, and I started working there. And very shortly after I started working there, I was approached to be my position I have now.
Yeah. It was just like an office manager's job. You went from bookkeeper to office manager.
Right. That's
and
exactly.
The roles just kept expanding and expanding.
And my part-time job was no longer. It was like, that was what attracted me to the job. But so now you're right. I practically live there. So.
But it was interesting because it was true. Our girls, her daughter Madison and our daughter Carly, they are the same age, and they grew up basically together because at that point, I think Madison was in her last year at Washington Charter. She was like in 5th grade. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah, 5th grade. And Carly was, but then they ended up meeting and going on to high school together. So we spent many years together with our daughters actually at the same age. And it was very convenient because we've always been a very pro-family organization. We've told anybody that had children, look, if you've got to bow out to go to a parent-teacher conference, if you've got to do something. We were so happy that Elizabeth was there because literally she could walk across the street, be the homeroom mom, and then come back to work, just literally by walking across the street. Yeah. So it really worked out really well for her, and it worked out really well for us because while she wasn't really a bookkeeper, she ended up learning the hard way, and now she really does effectively run the organization. So when you actually started coming to the center, though, you were just sort of you had this cautious look about everything that was going on. You know, what kind of church is this? Who are these crazy people? Or what are they talking about? So give me some of your feelings when you first walked into the center and you started meeting, you know, because I know you used to work during the day. You didn't work on Sundays. So, but then suddenly your position, you know, required you to work on Sundays. So you got to start meet people. You were meeting people. So tell me about your first interactions with your sense of what the center was all about.
Well, my mother was a Puerto Rican Catholic. My father was Hungarian Jewish. And so when I grew up, we went to the church and we also went to the temple. And so I wasn't really sure, I wasn't really religious. And so I thought, you know what, if I'm going to work here, I want to see what you're about. And so I started going on Sunday, and the first time I went, it was like, okay, you're talking directly to me. And so I was hooked. It just took that one Sunday and I fell in love. And of course I fell in love with all the congregation. Everyone was really open and welcoming, which was really important. And I didn't feel, because when William and I started going together, and he had 2 boys, I had 2 girls, and a blended family. So it was nice to be accepted and not feel like we were, it was just nice to be accepted. So that's what really drew me to that. And then Madison started going to the youth. I started bringing her to the youth program.
The teen group.
The teen group at the time, right.
Yeah. So, you know what I don't remember, and I probably need to ask William this, but I don't remember William at the beginning coming to the center. I remember you coming. Did William come with you from the get-go?
I believe he did, only because, William, he will hang out with me all day at the center.
He's a little clingy. Let's just say that. He loves you so much. He doesn't want to be away.
He's very clingy.
We'll just say he's very loving and very...
Very suffocating, yes. Okay. Yes, I believe he did. Maybe not the first time, but he did and because he was hooked immediately.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember him making a slow entrance into the center in terms of participating in things, and it took him a while, but he spooled up and started going to classes. What in the beginning, when you first started, and you began? I mean, you came on. What year was that? That was 2000. Let's see. Oh my gosh, the girls were 5. They're 23, 18 years. No, the girls were in 5th grade, so they were probably 12. And so that was probably 11 years ago, almost 11, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like I was there for 15 years, but I don't remember. To tell you the truth, I don't remember.
So the evolution, though, the change that you see in the center, because a lot of people talk about the fluidity of our center, the fact that people come and go, and you've seen it over the years where we have, some people that are there a lot. There's a core group, but there's a lot of people that fluctuate and go in and out. Do you see that? You
Yes.
sense that? And when you saw something like that, how did you feel? Because, I mean, for you, being a new person, you were used to going to temple and church, Catholic church and temple, which meant there were requirements. You had to go on, you had to go. And here you've got a whole philosophy and a center that just said, no, we don't require you to do anything. How did you feel about that kind of freedom and looking at the people out there and going, how do they keep this place going with so many people moving in and out? Did you ever have that feeling?
You know what? Because I immediately felt accepted and not, because I remember one time when previously I went somewhere and I was an unmarried mom, and they made me feel very like I was a sinner. In fact, I remember that word. So when I started going to the center and it being so accepting and people coming in and out, and no, we love them when they come in, we love them when they go out, and they end up showing back up again. It's like 10 years later, someone will show up that, I first met when I started going there or whatever. I feel the center is definitely a place that people, you have a long time people that have been there through this whole time, and then you have people that will come in and out. because we are always accepting. And when they come back when they need something, which is, okay. But then when you, the long timers, like Annie Jensen, who's still there and comes once a week to visit William and I in the office, which is really nice when she sees the gate open. But no, it's just a wonderful place, always accepting. So
what were some of your highlights at the very beginning? Do you remember when we started changing the music program? Were you there for that? Yeah, I think you were there. You were coming on just when that was happening. I think that you were noticing there was a shift in the way that people felt when we changed the music program. Do you remember that?
Yes, some people didn't like it, but most people loved it. I think, yes, I was there when we were shifting. I remember you were doing Dancing with Our Stars. You were training for that. So that's when I think I first started coming to the center.
I remember, because from a bookkeeping perspective, that was kind of a nightmare, because people were purchasing votes, and part of it was kept with the center and part of it went to the organization.
Yes.
Yeah, Dancing with Our Stars. That was a long time ago. So for those people that don't know the story, I'm actually going to tell the story. So I was approached several times to there's an organization called Dancing with Our Stars out in the Coachella Valley, and they would take what they call local celebrities and they would pair you up with a dancing professional. And they had asked me several times to do it, and I just kept saying no, because I just thought, I can't do this. But we had just finished renovating the church, and we literally we were $20,000 short in paying off the home equity, or the equity line that we had put in place so we could do the renovations. So we raised like $230,000, but we needed $20,000 more to complete the whole renovation. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to sign up for this, and let's just know that we can generate at least $20,000 or more for our organization and pay that off. So I was assigned a dance partner from Arthur Murray. Her name was Autumn. I don't remember her last name, but we used to practice in the sanctuary for hours and hours and hours. And people would buy votes, and Elizabeth was there when this was first happening. So she gets this crazy minister who's now dancing in the sanctuary as a dancer, and it's like, what is this all about? But we ended up winning the contest, and after we won, we ended up paying off the loan for the center of $20,000. We raised over $20,000. So that was, to me, I do remember that was your introduction, because I remember looking in the office and there were all those papers from the boats, and then there was all of our church stuff, and it was just like, oh my God, it's so difficult to keep it all separate, but you were able to do that. What's some of your fondest memories of the center? If you look back, just look back and share some of your fondest memories of things that happened at the center, or things that you've done with the center.
It wasn't just one, but your father would get up and dance in the sanctuary on Sunday. And I remember when we first hired Julie in the office, and she loved to dance, I told her part of her job was to dance with your father on Sundays in front of the sanctuary. So that
was, he loved to dance.
Yes, your father he was such a good dancer too. So your father, was one of the highlights. Also, I remember one time, I shouldn't probably say this. One time, Edwin Gaines was coming to our center. Mm-hmm. And I remember, because I like to collect things, you know me, okay? But I remember I purchased this beautiful purple chair, and I had William deliver it to the center, and I put it up on stage, and I told you that Edwin Gaines shipped that from, I think she was I forgot where she was, like Oklahoma or something, or Alabama, and she had it shipped so she could do a talk. And then you said, oh my God, is that true? And I said, yes. And so you started, I think you told someone, so it got back to me, and I'm like, I had to tell you the truth that I really just bought that chair and put it up on stage. So that was one of them. But and then I wouldn't say these are highlights, but I do remember. There's so many things I can say, but maybe I shouldn't say them. Remember that when we were having what was the gentleman's name? Neil Donald Walsh. Remember when he was coming to our center to do a thing? And that Sunday, you're up on stage, and I'm in the back in the copy room in the office, and it's nobody's in there. And you come in and you, service is ready to be over. In fact, it was the closing prayer. And you come into the office, you're sweating bullets, and you're holding onto the wall, and you say, Elizabeth, go find Trey. And you, what happened was I had to call 911, and I told them on the phone, do not put your sirens on. We are, and they ended up, you hear these sirens in the front of the sanctuary, and it's like, oh my gosh. But you ended up having stones. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yes, I remember that.
Okay, but
I don't know if I'll fill in some of that detail. So I'm doing the offertory after the second service, and I'm standing there, and suddenly, if anybody's ever had kidney stones or gallstones, you know what I'm talking about. Suddenly, it just clicks and it hits, and so I'm literally standing there after a service where I was talking about health and maintaining your health and the gift of health. And I'll be damned if literally they just started the offertory, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that pain was so intense. And so I casually said, Reverend Laura, would you welcome the guest? Because that's what we would do after the offertory, we would welcome the guest. And I ran off the stage there and went back there, and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm dying. And I have to tell you the story because it actually was really funny. It's kind of highly inappropriate, but it was just, you had to be there for it. So I run into my office, and I'm just like ripping my clothes off because I'm just hot and I'm just wet everywhere. There's like sweat everywhere. And I'm lying down on the floor, and Trey walks in and says, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? And I said, right, over here. He goes, oh, it's not your heart. You're going to be fine. And he was so casual about it, right? And Elizabeth's freaking out going, I need to call 911. I'm like, you can't. I just did a talk about health. You can't have an ambulance show up when people are walking out of the sanctuary. And, that is crazy. And eventually I acquiesced. And so part of the problem was I was in my office on the floor. The Neil Donald Walsh part goes in because half of the wardrobe, he did a play called One or something. I think it was called The One or One. And there were black costumes and there were white costumes. There was like a rack with two, that's only colors were black and white. And, and I was going back and forth, and I'm looking at these out going, oh my gosh, I'm going to live. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And it was just awful. It was chaotic. And finally I said, okay, fine, call the ambulance, but do not let them, have them come in Chicory off the backside by the school, no sirens. No, they didn't do that. They used blaring sirens, and they went all around the entire sanctuary or the entire block and ended up, and then, I'm wheeling out there. The practitioners, Reverend Mary and Whiteman, are all praying outside. It was that was really, yeah, that was one of our good memories, huh?
And, well, I'm not going to say this part, but.
I know, don't.
Okay,
right.
I won't.
She told me that she never mind.
Okay.
She did not like seeing me on the floor. Let's just say that.
Okay.
So anyway, there were some other things that happened, though, that were pretty important in our center, and you were a vital part of that happening. You began to take on more and more of, even though at first it was a general office manager, which kind of, it was day-to-day operations, but it wasn't as encompassing and as it is now. You actually grew into a much larger role from like an office manager into what is now the director of operations. And I say that because it was a huge responsibility. And I have to tell you, I have to tell everyone, Elizabeth is actually one of the reasons why our center is so successful. She manages the books. She manages our expenses and keeps our expenses down. She, just ultra manages every single nickel. In fact, why don't you tell them what happens when we have a yard sale? How do you tell people how I feel about garage sales or yard sales or why don't you share that story? Because I think that one's a funny one too.
So I wanted to have a parking lot sale. And you said, Elizabeth, really, I don't want to. I said, no, William will help me. You don't even have to be involved. You said, I will give you $500 to not have the sale. That's exactly what you said. And William and I were out there all day and we made exactly $500. It was like $498. So my thing was, and then the second time I wanted to do it, you're like, no, Elizabeth, you said the same thing. And so anyhow, so you do not like parking lot sales because you had bad memories of them or previous experiences.
Well, there was so much work involved. Rob Lamagno says, Elizabeth, you are the rock of the center, and I love and appreciate you so much. So that's Rob Lamagno. Hey, thanks,
Thank you.
Rob.
Does he have a birthday coming up?
Rob has a birthday coming up next month.
Yes,
yeah.
He's so awesome.
Is it still February? Yeah, next month. Yeah. So on the parking lot sale thing. So yeah, people have always said, oh yeah, let's do a big yard sale. And people didn't understand that, first of all, in order to do the yard sale, you have to store everything that everybody brings in until you actually have the sale itself. So we had stuff everywhere at the center. Every corner was filled with something, Costa Hall. It was just, and then you had to price everything. And then of course you had to take it all out of the storage and put it into the parking lot. And then at the very end of the day, things that people didn't want, because you were selling things for like, here, take it, 5 cents. Just take it. At the end, we were just throwing them, throwing things away, going, here, take it, please, 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 please. Because after that, you had to take it and put it somewhere. So it was interesting because it's like, okay, let's never do that again, because it doesn't ever raise any money. And all it does is it's just a whole day's worth of work. And then the next morning, Sunday morning, and you've got to launch into our whole Sunday production. And so Elizabeth and I, she's tried some things, and I always say yes. I'm always one to say yes, but there are times when I'm going, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. And she's like, yes, we do. It's going to be fine. Yes. Elizabeth always has the yes, yes. I know better than you, Dr. Joe. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make this work. And then, yeah, it works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you have pulled some things off that are really cool. And sometimes it's like, ooh, no, let's not do that ever again.
And then I always have to have William on board, because that last parking lot sale, he had to deliver a couch. And I mean, it was just, he's always put in the middle of, I have these fabulous ideas, but then he's the one that's always, I make him do things that he stop volunteering me, he says.
He has to implement your idea. Elizabeth, I'll never forget, I was gone. Was that just last year?
Oh, gosh.
The year before, where I left for a vacation, and I came home and the entire sanctuary and the exterior of the building had been repainted. Was that just last year or the year before?
That was 2019, I believe.
Oh my God, I'll never forget that. I came home and I'm like, wow, okay, well, everything has been painted and everything changed. It was poor William. I just know that she just had William working, I bet he got bread and water and an hour off a day.
He loves doing that. He loves being of service. See, that's the whole thing, that he will do it. He does it because he loves it. So he'll do anything I ask him to do because he loves it.
And now William, now known as Reverend William, he's very dedicated to the center as well. He's always had a passion for that. So Elizabeth, you got to go on some trips with the center.
Oh my gosh.
So the first one was Bali. I think we went to Bali together, which was, it was a magical, fabulous experience. It was hot as hell and steamy and humid. But it really was. What was the highlight of the Bali trip?
You know what I just thought of when you said that? The whole time we were there, you wore a white wash rag on your head. That was
because I would dip ice water and I would dip it in.
That's what
I had, because I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to pass out. It's so hot here. Yes, that everywhere I traveled in Bali, I had a wet white washcloth on my head. So what was one of your memories of the Bali experience?
Oh gosh, you know what? That was, out of all of our trips, that was my favorite. And it was just so, it just really truly felt so magical and spiritual. It was like, I don't know, it was like an awakening for me. It's something I just never felt that way. And then just a side note, I ended up going back to Bali without you. And it didn't feel the same. It was that trip. So just being there with you and Dr. Laura, it was just and the congregation, I mean, the people that did go with us, it was just so wonderful. That was absolutely my favorite. And spirit tours, the way they took care of us. It was just so wonderful.
Anything specifically? Because there's one thing that there was one highlight that the last day, actually. The last day, one thing about traveling with spirit tours, and I really appreciated this, was when you would go to these different sites, spirit tours had great connections. And at these connections, we would, where other people would just be standing there looking at a temple, we actually got to go in, and we would have these amazing services in the temple with the people who act. It was their temple, their spiritual leaders. It was fascinating, and I remember specifically the last day where there was this temple that you had to walk. Literally, we had to walk. Do you remember walking through the water to get there?
Yes.
Everyone stood on a beach across from it, and then there was this temple, and we had to walk through the water, and we went into this magnificent temple. And I just remember after being in Bali for a week, in fact, my sister Jill, oh my God, there's Jill right there. Elizabeth was my, what is it?
Bali
marker. If it wasn't for her, I would have been. I would have to. If it wasn't for her, I've been able to buy a thing. The money conversion was crazy. Yeah, it's true. That my sister Jill. That's my sister Jill. She actually went with us, and I just remember that experience in that particular temple, looking at you and looking at everybody that actually went on that trip, and it was just fascinating because it was so very special. Nothing was the same when we got back from Bali. It seems like there was a shift of, the way we did meditation. I think you were there when meditation and quiet time was born into the service, and that was a byproduct of our Bali trip.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes. And also, yes, it was fabulous. But I do remember you and I snuck away one day. We had our driver, and you and I went shopping, and that was dangerous. And I had to buy another suitcase to put all the stuff that I bought. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, shopping with you was it was a great experience.
Yeah, usually it's not. Ask Trey. Usually shopping with me is not a good experience at all because I just don't like shopping. There was a comment. I saw Tom Kelly come up with a comment, but can you bring that back up? Whoever's or Jeff, you're still coordinating. It says, "Hi Elizabeth, good seeing you. Hey, it's almost happy hour time in Florida. Hopefully you're visiting." Ty and Valerie. Oh, Dr. Joe. Hi. Gee, hi, Tom. So Tom's logged in too. That's cool. Welcome, Tom. Yeah, Tom down here. Tom lives. Tom and Long live down here in Southern Florida as well. So, all right. So, what's next? I mean, you're looking at the center and you look at the changes that have taken place. And are you, your husband is now a minister. How did that feel when William started taking classes? And next thing you know, you're watching him ascend to that position in the center. How did that feel observing that?
I remember when William was in a class with you, and it was early in the morning, and it was the James Mellon. What was that thing where a bunch of people would sit around a table?
Mental muscle.
Okay. I remember being so upset because William was in that class, and I felt like he was talking about me, and I don't want anyone to know anything about me. And you said, Elizabeth, you basically, because you always tell me, you would yell from your office, be nice, because you think I'm not nice to William, but I really am. So I just remember the way William it's unbelievable because when we first started there and it's almost like, I don't even know just the change in William alone is unbelievable to me. Because, and I shouldn't say this, I don't know who's watching, but we were on the verge of divorce. I'm not kidding. It was like, I was done, with him. But he is so, this wonderful just man, and he has grown. It's just amazing. But I just remember you telling me to be patient and to stop and to be nice and to just let William be William. Because I was trying to control him.
Yeah. Elizabeth, I do think this. Every relationship, I don't think there's a married person, and maybe I'm not right, but I think there are very few married people who at one point haven't went, oh my God, you're out of here. I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. I think most marriages have at some point they hit that wall. I'm just glad William was going through classes at the time because I did see a mellowing out of him, kind of. And he's always been very soft and very, very sweet. But there was something else in him that was born in that. And it was interesting to watch you observe that, because I had to tell you over and over again, you cannot be part of his, religious, spiritual instruction, because you're the director of operations and you're his wife. I really need you to just let him be in class, and don't say, William, don't ask that question, because that was, that William loves to ask questions. We do love William and all of his questions. So,
yes.
But what was it like when he actually passed his test? Because I know that I was on William's panel, and I know that you were just outside the room when William was taking his panel to pass his ministerial exam, his oral ministerial hour. So how did you feel? What was that feeling that you had when all that was over?
It was so. I felt so proud of him. It was such a feeling of, first of all, relief, because he could not relax because he was so wound up about the panels. But the sense of relief and being I was just thinking, I was just proud. That's all I can say, is that I was so amazed by his, what he started off as, and getting locked out of practitioner class where, it's like, you're on the verge of getting kicked out here. Okay. To now look at how wonderful. It was such a sense of pride that I had in him. And I was so, just thinking, you can do anything you put your mind to, because he was brought up with no one ever patting him on the back, saying, what a good job you're doing. And so, and he is doing such a wonderful job. So I was very proud of him, and very relieved. Thank God that's over. It was like, finally. It's like when your child is like, okay, now they're set, like, Carly's this wonderful pilot, or, beautiful, has her life together. It felt like that. It's like, thank God that part of your life's over, and now we can move on.
But what's really interesting too, Elizabeth, and I don't think maybe you don't see this, you were there from the first class all the way through this evolution. A lot of spouses, someone will go to a class and you really don't see or hear their interactions, or you get little snippets here and there. But because you are who you are, and you were where you were, you actually, were able to hear so much that was going on in classes and things like that. So you had a real bird's eye view of what was really going on in his head. And I think when a spouse sees that, that's a unique perspective that not all people get to look at. So I think, part of it changing the dynamic of your relationship, I think, had to do with the fact that you can see a person differently when you watch them evolve, and literally you watched them over the course of years evolve in a certain way. So I think that's one of the greatest gifts that I've seen with the two of you, because I just adore being around both of you. We laugh and have such a good time together. You still call me Dr. Joe though when we're out in public, but that's okay. Because Dr. Joe has a martini. Oh, look, this isn't really martini.
Well, it used to be worse when I would call you Reverend Joe. Okay, now you could just be a medical doctor. It doesn't.
Yeah, I don't like any of that. So anyway, yeah. Even when we're out having like a margarita someplace, she's always referring to me as Dr. Joe. Anyway, but she's the wizard. She's the woman that. So some of the biggest challenges that you see going forward right now, this past year with COVID, looking back the past year, and what you've seen at our center and what you've experienced with our congregants, how do you describe that? How do you, if I were to ask you, how do you describe the center's involvement over the past 12 months? How would you describe that, being someone who was actually on the inside of everything?
I love of course, it's going into COVID was a whole new world, but all the Zoom, everything we do at 10 o'clock, and getting letters in the mail, how people so appreciate what we're doing. And some people do not leave their homes at all. And, here I am. So, I go to work every day, usually, but, or go to the center every day, I should say. But some people they don't leave their house at all. And this is such a new way of doing ministry, with our daily shows and on our Sunday services. It is, even when we go back into service, even when we open the doors to the sanctuary, I see us always doing this, having our programs, because it means so much to people, and we are reaching people that are not even local. I mean, so they wouldn't be coming to our center regardless,
Right.
Driving to the center. So this has been a definite experience. The whole, I mean, like, just being on, like right now, I mean, it's like, I cannot, you told me I have no choice. I have to be here today. That's so,
but I said it lovingly, Elizabeth. It was said with love. I'm like, no, you don't have a choice. If I got to go to work today, you have to go. Come on.
I did lovingly. And I do, but I'm just teasing you, but no, but this is such a different way of doing business, I guess it is, or doing ministry. It's, and I see us, continuing it. So it's opened up a whole new world for us. So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, people don't know this, because I was talking to a congregant this morning before we went on, we had to come on. But, people don't know that in 2019, I went to Bali with my daughter. I'm changing the subject here. I went to Bali with my daughter, and I came back, and I was feeling really puffy and just wasn't feeling well. And I ended up, you were getting ready, because it's in August, you're getting ready to leave the country for just a vacation. And you were calling me, and I wasn't answering my phone. And so then you call William, and you're like, where's Elizabeth? And she basically, what happened was I went to the emergency room, and they found out that I had a kidney stone, and I wanted to go home and pass the stone. And you, so anyhow, you were calling because I wasn't answering, because I was like in bed, just terrible, high temperature, everything at home. And you called me, and you told William that I have to answer the phone, and you made me go back to the hospital. And you said, Elizabeth, I'll go there. The doctor will meet you at 4:00 in the emergency room. And what ended up happening was I ended up having sepsis, and you literally saved my life. And I'm not just saying that like spiritually, you actually saved my life. If I was in the ICU for 3 days. I ended up going into sepsis shock in the emergency room while I was waiting, but it's like you truly saved my life. And people say, in so many ways you have, but this was unbelievable. So I do want to say thank you. And I've told you that before, but that is just, without you, I would not be here. So yeah. It was just amazing. Because
people need to know that the Wizard of Oz sometimes has a stubborn streak. Sometimes Elizabeth, just like when it comes to self-care and things like that, where I try to have her take care of herself, sometimes it's met with such great opposition, and I'm like, I have to. That's why actually, Elizabeth, that you probably need to know this. That's why I was so adamant that you were a part of all the trips that we went on to Bali, to Peru, to New Zealand, to Australia, New Zealand. You were always a part of that, because it's like, okay, this would give you, while you're kind of semi-working, it gives you an opportunity to sort of break away from the everyday routine that we had going on at the center. Because, the Wizard of Oz, sometimes she did not want to take care of herself. And finally, I'd have to say, look, I'm telling you, you have to do this. And because you and I have a really good working relationship and respect for one another, I'm really glad you did that, because truly, and thank God my friend's the urologist. So I'm like, okay, look, you need to go, because he's going to meet you there. And I'm just so grateful that you did, because I didn't even know she was in the ICU. And I was freaking out when I found out, because I'm on vacation. I'm not even supposed to be in contact with the center. And I'm like, wow, this is just too much. So I'm so grateful that you did that. And I'm also really grateful for everything you do for the center. I say that a lot on Sundays, and I'm always like, hey, Elizabeth, I'm always, hey, Elizabeth. I mean, you hear that's all you hear me say is, hey, Elizabeth. But I just have to tell people that if it weren't for Elizabeth, I know that I could never have accomplished the things we've accomplished at the center, because she is literally she's like the engineer train, the engine train. She just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, and she manages to get everybody on the train on time, and she manages to pull all the different things together, and it always works out. And I'm really grateful that, you know, and I don't know if people know this, when you were a bookkeeper, when and I think it was Ann and Janice that were the ones that were looking for the new position.
Mhm.
And I told them, I said, you know, this is a really tough position to fill because eventually this person has to think the way I think. Because if she's going to be answering questions, normally as a micromanager that I was at the time, I needed somebody to think the way I think. And it took us a little while. It took us a couple years, but finally it got to the point where instead of calling me and saying, hey, what do you want me to do with this? And getting my opinion, you would call and say, hey, what do you want to do with this? And I would tell you, and you would say, oh, good, because I already did it that way. So we ended up getting into that kind of synchronicity where that was actually really beneficial for both of us, because it was very empowering to you, and it was a much of a relief to me to be able to delegate. Hannah Mercer, oh my God, Hannah, how are you? Good. It says great interview. I love Hannah. Hannah, I haven't seen you forever.
Oh,
And
Hannah, sweet.
I haven't seen Hannah in forever. Elizabeth is wonderful. She truly is. She is the gift to the office. In fact, I think people need to know this. In the course of transitioning into my retirement, the board made sure that Elizabeth has a contract to stay on a certain length of time after my departure, whenever that's going to be, because her wisdom and knowledge is so respected, and because she knows where everything is. And there's very few people in a business that have that type of wealth of knowledge and mental capital that can actually help facilitate, you know, the ongoingness of something as large as our center. I don't think people realize that it takes a lot of moving parts to keep our center going, and there can only be one quarterback, and you're it. You know, everything kind of goes through Elizabeth before it goes out. As you look on to like not just your life, but your attitude toward life. I know that certain things that we've talked about, and let's get personal here. You know, you didn't like talking about death, and you didn't like dealing with conflict and all those things that happen in life. But I think over time, Elizabeth, it's been really interesting to see how you've evolved because of your association with the center and listening to what goes on. That you operate with less fear and more faith. Is that a true statement?
That is yes, that is.
Because before, you know, as a single mom and someone who'd been divorced and someone who had, you know, the history that you've had, it was challenging. And so there was a distrust of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I've noticed more than anything over the years is that you've become, you know, while there's always a part of you that doesn't trust much, there's a part of you that once you get in there, you trust unconditionally and you move unconditionally. So I just want to let you know, it's been interesting to watch that evolve, because people don't get to see that part of you. You know, they see the worker bee and the organizer, but what they don't see is that there's this individual that has literally transformed her life by association with the center. And I can't even tell you how many hours she spends there, but the center is very much her passion. And you've said to me, and you've said, I don't work here. I belong here.
Yes.
It's what you do.
And I bought a house, literally 5 minutes, 8 minutes, so I could walk to the center, but I never do. But I bought a house so I could walk to the center, because I am there. That is like my second home. I feel like, in fact, I'm there, I think, more than I am at my own home. But it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like it's because I love being there, and I love everything about the center. I love yesterday walking in the garden, because Greg, who's so wonderful, redid our flowers in the garden. And, you know, he's showing me every little thing about the garden. And then just everything about the center. It truly is, when people say labor of love, I love it. And I know William, I mean, it's like we have this passion for the center. And I don't know how long it took before that started happening or changing in me, but to me, this is not a job. I love it. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It's like, when I try to think about what my life was without the center in it, it was very chaotic. And I mean, just like even when my mom was making her transition and not wanting her to go when it was the right time for her to go, because she was suffering. It's, I look at death differently. I look at everything in my world differently, because of the change of the center. And it's such a peaceful, calming. I remember one time I told you there was a lady that I became close to, and she was very afraid of dying, and she didn't have family out here. And you said, Elizabeth, you can. It's like I didn't know what to do, and you said, all you can do is just like hold her hand and be there, and I mean, and just like be a friend, be someone that is loving, and I mean that was just being there. And I've been with several people that have made their transitions now. Not that that's, I mean, just happened, and just knowing that this is not the end. This is not like this. It's not the end. It's so comforting. It really is truly comforting. It's comforting to me, and I know it's comforting to the person who's leaving. So.
And I think people need to know that there have been certain members of the congregation that have endeared themselves with Elizabeth, and like Bill Brewer.
Oh my God,
Bill. And I mean, Bill made his transition a couple of years ago, and Elizabeth was just so dedicated to, he needed help, and Elizabeth just helped him out. I remember you taking him to doctor's appointments and to all sorts of things, and I just would say, Elizabeth, you don't have to do that. We've got to be on Sunday group. You don't have to take this on one-on-one. And you didn't. You wanted to be a part of that in his life. And there have been several people like that ultimately made their transitions, but you were such an integral part. I mean, you yourself, while you're not a minister, you have been a minister in so many different ways for so many people, because when the centers open, pre-COVID, people would just come in and they would just dump all their problems on your lap, and you would patiently listen, even though you had, hours worth of work staring at you. People need to know that Elizabeth's dedication, she just was so dedicated to get Bill to his doctor's appointment if she had to run out of the church to do that, and then listen to someone come in for a half hour and talk about, whatever they needed to talk about and purge. And, you just were there for them, and you've been there for the center. I think it's important for people to know that, you are very much a pillar in that center. I think of all the major players that have been at that center over the past 40 some odd years. And in my mind, you are one of those, because you've always risen to the occasion, and you've always dedicated yourself to the center. And I know you've been fiercely protective of me, and extremely loyal and kind and generous with my family. But more importantly than that, your interest in the center has always been paramount. And I think that people need to know that it's not just Joe, it's not just, whoever is in leadership. It is keeping that center going has always been one of your highest priorities for the past few years that you've been there. So I bless you for all the work that you've done. I mean, I can't say enough. Let's see, Elizabeth, you found your calling and blessed us all with your grace. Thank you for your kindness and service to our family. Oh, that came from my sister.
Your sister's so sweet.
She is. Thank you, Elizabeth. You are a real blessing from the center. That's coming in from David Flint.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, it's been a journey, Elizabeth. Okay, I won't make you go on any further, but you know what, Elizabeth, we made it for almost 50 minutes, and you said, I don't even want to do 5 minutes.
That's right.
And I told you how easy it was going to be and how fun it's going to be, and we can reminisce a little bit. So hopefully you got to get a little view of and a conversation with Elizabeth today. She's more than the director of operations. She is the Wizard of Oz. She is behind the curtain making it all happen. So is there anything else you want to say, Elizabeth, or are you complete?
I would like to say that it has been such a pleasure, more than, I mean, I said this before, I adore you, and it's true. You have been, and you keep telling me you are a walk in the park. You are not a walk in the park, okay?
I am a walk in the park.
Compared to, yes, one other person, but you are, you have been such a life-changing person that had come into my life. I have been, this has not been, I have been, when your sister said we're blessed, I am so blessed that I don't even know, that was just, you know how you use divine intervention that I found that job. I mean, it's like, I was not a bookkeeper. Okay. I was real estate, mortgage banking, coffee girl. So it has been just a wonderful journey. You have been the most wonderful boss. It's like, I don't even feel like you're my boss. I mean, you get me to do things I don't want to do. And you have confidence in me when things, you know, I don't want to do something or I feel like I can't do it. You really, it's almost every time like a teaching moment. You truly have been the most influential person in my life. You've been wonderful. And so all I can say is this has been, I mean, I don't even know how to thank you. I mean, and everything I do for you and your family and the center is out of love. I don't do it because I feel like I have to. I mean, like I was just teasing about today. Yes, I didn't want to do it, but it's like, I do it because you want me to do something. And I do it because I love you. I love the center and I love our congregation and I love your family. So,
and I know people love you and people want to hear from you because you never want to be out front.
no.
You know, everybody likes to be out front, but Elizabeth does not want to be out. It's like, don't call me up on stage. Don't call me. Just, I'll work in the back. Don't even, you know. So I'm just so glad you actually came today and showed up and said, let's have this experience. So thank you, sweetie. We really, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So that's our show for today. We'll be back. We'll have our Sunday service coming up on Sunday, meditations tomorrow. I'll be with you on Monday to talk about one of the spiritual laws that we're going to go through. I think it's the law of receiving on Monday. So every day at 10 o'clock, there's a place for you to be, and that is right here at the Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert. So we highly encourage you to donate to the center. If you haven't done so already, please take this opportunity to click on the link, and it will take you right to an area that you could donate, or you could actually call the center, or you can text. There's many, many ways that you could support the center. We greatly appreciate all of your support. And we're just so glad you were able to join us today. So Elizabeth, thank you so much. We have another conference call in a half hour. So I will talk to you in a half hour. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. It's Friday. Go out and enjoy yourself. The weather is beautiful. It's going to be a great day in the desert, great weekend. So enjoy. And thank you, Donna. I appreciate that too. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.